Confessions of a Spanish Teacher, Part 4. During that time, I had taken a lodger in the Ladbrokes flat. She was a young girl. I won't give her name as I don't see her now and have no permission to do so. She was one of the cashiers that I worked with at my shop. She only lived around the corner, but she wanted some independence from her parents. She was in her early 20s. I was probably 28 or 29. Moving in with me was perfect because she was away from home, but she was still near enough to be close to her parents. I had started seeing Terry on a more regular basis, but it was all innocent, at least in my mind. Friendship, nothing more. Nothing romantic had happened between us. I think he had realised that the best way to continue seeing me was to not push the relationship before I was ready. We went for drinks. He came around for dinner with another guy that liked my flatmate. All very casual and fun. After one such dinner, the following day, he rang me to say that as he was taking the other guy home, he had commented to Terry, "I wouldn't get too hopeful about a relationship with Vicki if I were you." When Terry had asked him to expand on that comment, he had refused, just saying, "Ask Vicki," and repeating his advice. During the time I was getting closer to Terry, my flatmate had started to act a little strangely. She was saying she did not like him, she did not see what I saw in him, etc. Many snide comments that I basically just ignored. Nothing was serious yet. I was enjoying his company, so I didn't really care what she said. After this comment by the guy who had come to dinner and spent quite a lot of time with her, I decided to sit her down and try and find out exactly what the problem was. We started to talk, and I had concluded by then that maybe she liked him herself. I could not think of any other reason she was so negative about him. He always tried to be nice to her from what I could see. Eventually, I just asked her straight, "Is it because you like him yourself?" I asked. "No," she replied. "It's because that I think I'm in love with you." Stunned does not describe how I felt. This was a girl with whom I'd discussed men often, as women do. Boyfriends, exes, who we fancied, who we didn't. I had absolutely no reason to believe that she was interested in women. And how long had she thought like this? She was also the girl that hung out my underwear out on the line many times. She was the girl that had asked me to read her tarot cards about a subject that she said she could not divulge. But whenever I'd read them, it had always said it would lead to nothing good. We'd planned holidays together. We'd even talked about getting a mortgage together. We'd moved from the Ladbrokes flat when I left that employment into a new rental, and we'd signed the contract together. When the hell was she planning to tell me? I was even more stunned when it transpired that she had told virtually everybody else except me about how she felt. Her friends, even the guy who had come to dinner, hence his cryptic comment to Terry advising him to not get his hopes up for any relationship with me. Of all the reasons that had occurred to me that she might be disapproving of my relationship with Terry, this had not been one of them. When I spoke to Terry later that day to tell him how it went, he said, "Don't tell me she's in love with me." I said, "No, actually, she's in love with me." I think that was a bit of a blow for his ego. I had a good friend at the time who was in a gay relationship. I asked her and her girlfriend to take my flatmate around some of the gay clubs in the area so that she could decide if she was gay or not. I think in hindsight, she had a sort of a schoolgirl crush on me rather than a sexual thing. She didn't like the gay scene, and she later married an older guy from work and had children. I should mention that Terry was also a lot older than me, 16 years to be exact. Maybe she was copying me, I really do not know. All I know is that I felt very butch for a long time afterwards, as I didn't understand why she thought I might be gay. I like women, of course, and I can appreciate their beauty and find them attractive, but sexually they do nothing for me whatsoever. Sometimes I wonder if my love life might have been easier if they did, but they don't. If you are reading this or listening to this, my ex-flatmate, I hope that your life has been happy and fulfilled. We were good friends and we did have many good times together until and even after that bombshell. However, I do sort of blame her for what happened next. I could not afford the rent on my new flat on my own when she moved out due to the situation. So she moved out and Terry moved in, and that's when our relationship started. In the year or so that we'd been friends, Terry had always told me what I suppose is the classic married man's story, that he and his wife had been like brother and sister for years. She had told him to leave many times, and it was just a question of finding somewhere appropriate to live. He said that she was actively encouraging him to leave. I was a lot younger then, and I just believed him. All you wives out there who like to blame another woman if your husband has had an affair, I know it must hurt, and it's probably easier to blame the stranger, but I never understand it. I would always put the blame on the man that was supposed to be married, for better or worse. They lie to their girlfriend, who is likely younger and more naive, and she takes pity on him for his unfortunate situation. In my opinion, the sympathy often lies erroneously with the pathetic husband who just couldn't help himself, lured away by some siren. In my opinion, a man's not much of a man if he allows this to happen. And in my experience, the man goes all out to start and sustain the affair until he gets caught, and then suddenly he's the victim. Anyway, regardless of what anyone believes, our romantic relationship did not start until Terry left his wife. Predictably, the things he had told me turned out not to actually be true. His wife was livid when he left, not relieved at all, and she blamed me completely for wrecking her marriage. I have to say that in the beginning, our relationship was good overall. It was nice to go out with an older man who adored me and would do anything for me. We seemed so compatible, we liked doing all the same things. But now I wonder if he really liked doing them or he just would do anything to please me. I'm an early morning person, and I was out at the crack of dawn to walk the dog, as I still do now. I was, believe it or not, a keep fit fanatic at the time. I played squash, I jogged, I went circuit training, step and the gym. We went rambling every weekend, long walks, whatever the weather. Terry, who was well into his 40s, joined in with everything. I later realised that it was because he would not let me do anything alone, not even with my female friends. He had to watch me every minute, he was so insecure. However, things were good for a while. I was doing the Access course at Reading College and working weekends at the independent bookmakers. Terry left Ladbrokes and came to work there as well. Another sign, really. Before we got together, he had lots of guy friends. He would go playing cards or go to the races, etc. with them. He stopped doing all that. He never stopped me going anywhere, but he would always make me feel guilty about it, leaving him alone. Even just going to the gym with my friend Martine. When she came to pick me up, he would say, "Are you taking her away from me again?" And she would feel uncomfortable. Problems really started when I went to university. He enjoyed chatting to me about the subjects on that course, as he was interested in subjects too, on the Access course at college. However, when I went to university, it was all a bit over his head. I mean, really, if you weren't actually doing the course, it would be for anyone. I wouldn't like to sit and talk about university level mathematics or any other subject unless I was doing it myself. However, as he did not like me doing things on my own, he would insist coming along to any social gatherings or parties. Then he would complain that I hadn't included him enough in the conversation. The conversation obviously was all about the course, as that was what we all had in common. I joined the Labour Party and started attending meetings. So did he. It was the beginning of the Blair years, I suppose, or just before. I remember it was Terry that had told me that John Smith had had a heart attack and died one day when I rang him at work. We were heartbroken. We all thought he would be the next Prime Minister. Another thing that did not help our relationship was when I left the independent bookmakers that he had followed me to, and I started working for the Tote on-course bookmakers on racecourses at weekends and holidays. I loved that job. It was so different from the betting shops. People were on a day out and so much happier. Ascot, Windsor, Bath, Chepstow, Goodwood, Cheltenham, Newbury, etc. We travelled all over, and sometimes we stayed overnight or even for a week if it was a big meeting. It wasn't fabulous in the way of well paid particularly, it was just fun and a great atmosphere. I had to work to supplement my grants and to help pay our bills. He was working, of course, but then we bought a house together, so we had a mortgage to pay. Also, we paid maintenance for his 3 teenage daughters. Terry was not abusive, but he was controlling. He was constantly asking me to marry him. I'm just grateful that I didn't. I believe that once he thought he was finally secure with me, he would have ramped up that control. Anyone who's ever had that sort of relationship will know it does not go bad overnight. It happens gradually. So gradually that you don't even realise that it's happening until you're so entwined in it. Jokey comments, turning up unexpectedly at race meetings that I was working at to surprise me, reading my diary, going through the bins to see what I had thrown away. Not physical abuse, but it was a possessiveness that over time made me feel suffocated, and I could not breathe and be myself. I felt guilty every time I left him or tried to do anything on my own. It got worse and worse, and my mental health started to suffer. I was having panic attacks on a regular basis. During one panic attack, when I was really down, Terry suggested that we commit suicide together. Another day, during an argument, he locked himself in the garage in our backyard and started stringing up a noose. He told me that he'd been suicidal since his teenage years, but he'd never followed it through. His mother later told me that his father was an abusive alcoholic and that these feelings had started then. All this was chipping away at our relationship and at my relationships with other people. Terry wanted to do things, but he wanted it to just be me and him. It was almost comical when it was coming up to bonfire night and I wanted to go to a big organised fireworks display and he just wanted to be in the back garden with a couple of Catherine wheels, just me, him and the sparklers. I was 32 years old and I still had a lot of dreams. One was having children. Until I hit 30, I hadn't really thought about it much. But after 30, my hormones must have kicked in or something because I really wanted them. A little while after Terry and I had moved in together, I was a bit late with my period. and got quite excited that I might be pregnant. When I shared this with him, he said, "What do you mean? You can't be pregnant. I'm sterile." He had not shared this fact with me before we got together. Years before, Terry had had Hodgkin's lymphoma and had been given only months to live. He was saved by a course of chemotherapy during which he lost all his hair and his sperm count too. At the time, he was offered the opportunity to freeze some sperm, but as he was already married with 3 young daughters, he did not accept the offer. I knew he had had chemotherapy, but I did not know it could make you sterile. He insinuated that I should have just known that, and he was really dismissive about it. How would I have known? He went for tests, and it was confirmed he was sterile. I was devastated. This was another crack in the wall of our relationship. I felt hurt that he had not been honest with me. He knew I wanted children, and although he had not lied, he had withheld the truth. We were placed on a list for artificial insemination for when I finished my degree. The specialist assured me they matched the father's physical characteristics with the donor and said that they were normally medical students, so presumably they would have a reasonable level of intelligence. There were a lot of things I did like about our relationship. I felt secure, being with someone who seemingly loved me so much, but my anxiety and panic attacks were ramping up. However, if he could just have been a little less possessive, maybe it would have turned out okay. I still had this image that I would one day like to go and live abroad. And my dream at the time, when I was so interested in politics, was to work for the European Union in Brussels. It's ironic, really. I'd probably be redundant now. Terry complained that every job I ever said I wanted was abroad and would take me away from him. He didn't understand that I'd wanted to live abroad since I was a little girl, and there was no reason why he could not come with me. So these were the several reasons that our relationship was starting to unravel. We were starting to grow apart, and we both knew it.